Oh my goodness, we're live.
Hello, welcome to Plat VALORANT episode 200. Okay, right, we'll start that one again, shall we? But welcome to Plat VALORANT.
Welcome to Plat Chat Valorant episode 222. We're rebranding. We're actually called Train Talks now. Episode 1.
Dude, let's go.
Talks.
Oh, let's go. Great pivot, so I love that from you.
We got our train enthusiast Mimi. We got our Pacific believer Wyatt, and we're gonna be talking all about Paper X, no other teams today. Sideshow.
Recognized game.
I will let you speak without blowing this. If you apologize to Paper X and the train and everyone on the train.
I think I do have to give an apology. I think you're right. I think I just have to apologize to a team that I underrated absolutely horribly, who I didn't believe in at all during their domestic run. I didn't even necessarily think that they were going to be able to make it to Toronto. I think I predicted against them every single time, and then they ran a train on the upper bracket. It was absolutely absurd. It's a pity, though, that they didn't get to the grand finals, because I massively did underrate Wolves. Insane underration of Wolves, to be honest with you.
Crazy. That's crazy behavior.
No, it is deranged. I did enjoy watching you dissociate on the caster cam. Is that true, Josh? Is that
what?
Where was your mental state at? While you were witnessing your final of many bad takes on this event also just crumble in front of your eyes.
Oh, I mean, the urge to tank my whole career by shouting, "This is a fraudulent team!" No, I will say though, okay, yeah. This is another bad take coming from me
he's
here.
Trying to win him back. Oh,
no.
He's not trying to win him back.
No, I'm not trying to win him back. I'm not trying to win him back. I think it would have been better if Paper X had continued to lose.
What does that
mean? Because the Paper X thing that everyone loves about them is that they're hunting the trophy. Every time they come into a tournament, you're like, this is the time. They've already done it.
Yeah,
they've done it now.
I mean, some of these players and coaches have been going for 4 years, mate.
Yeah, I know. Well, didn't they have 5 in them? Didn't they have 6 in them, Slicky?
No, imagine it was 10 years of Valorant. 10 years of Valorant. They've been grinding all this time. They've been to 18 international events, and then
Jing's a father. His son's gone off to military service.
I don't know.
They would never keep the team.
It can't go that long. Yeah, they wouldn't keep the team. Players would leave, and in addition to that, eventually they would lose steam as far as people being interested if they can't do it. I feel like that is currently happening in a shorter time frame to Heretics, where people are falling off the bandwagon as of the last several months. So they needed to do it. Eventually, the babyface needs the win, Josh. They can't keep losing. Yes, the content is in the chase, but eventually they have to win, and this was the right time. So get over it, okay? I know it's upsetting that all of your takes crashed and burned at this event, beginning with the funniest of them all, which I would have loved to have talked about at the live event. But the Heretics winning prediction, I mean, the segment was called Bold Predictions. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
I was bold.
It was bold.
How did they do it again where they lose to the first and third team? And then, like, you look at the beginning of the tournament and you're like, well, they can't be the first and third team. They lost to Paper X and Wolves. This can't be the first and third team. And yet suddenly, actual Heretics Al-Gaib. Like, Heretics need to go to every event so that you can figure out who's going to win before you have to play any of the event. Yeah.
It is wild. Yeah, I remember looking at this and thinking, well, there's no way that Wolves can get that far. Like, a third would be absolutely insane. I did have belief in Paper X, but only, like, to go the full way, but only once I saw, like, the Seed 1 teams and, like, how they were.
Yeah, you originally predicted Paper X to come like 5th.
I was happy with a 5th, 6th. Yeah. Again, I'm the conductor. I'm not in charge of actually driving. So I was like, guys, I'm happy with a 5th to 6th. But they installed a W key. So
you know what's a testament to the level of intellect that we dispense on this show regularly? The fact that I saw a 1,000 upvote thread titled "Congrats to Wyatt for coming the closest to predicting the Toronto winner. We're now getting credit for being wrong, but close, because I picked FNATIC and everyone else was more wrong. But I was still wrong." I mean, we're in a dire state here, fellas. We gotta wrangle things back. We're losing them. We are losing them.
Isn't this like wasn't this kind of a sick tournament though for how many teams could have won? Like I really think when we went through the power ranking and we were like all 1 to 7 teams could have won, and then you see teams that we were actually not even picked. Like I don't think even that we've done in a hot minute where we've said like 7 teams could win the event. Normally it's like 3 or 4 or something, even if we're wrong. But then like you had a run from Wolves getting to 3rd place when we had them as the 11th team as well. Like it was a wide open tournament. I didn't fuck with it kind of at the beginning because I didn't have a clue what was going on.
I agree with that. I only really started like properly enjoying it when we got to playoffs, to be honest. I wasn't like super keen on the actual groups. I thought, I don't know, some of the groups people getting wrecked as well.
Dude,
a lot of blowouts.
The group stage games were... a lot of those games were just straight up bad. Like the several games I remember thinking about going into casting, like, this should be great. We have Nats is back going up against Ospas, the GOAT, the hope of this team that is the hope of Brazil. This should be a banger. It's story rich. I mean, just absolute trash game. Like this kind of thing just happened on several occasions. We're like, all right, today's the day. We got a banger coming up. 2-0. They're just
Wyatt,
so many
I think
2-0s.
you were the curse, because I feel like every game that you and Mitch ended up casting that was supposed to be a banger on paper just ended up like that. And then I saw like the stats that someone puts together on Reddit. I think you were also the duo that had the most tech pauses of anyone at the event. So you guys just showed up to cast tech pauses and blowouts of beloved teams just falling to pieces.
No, I think the best game we did the entire time was the Wolves debut map against Sentinels on Split, where they almost
That one was a great
won.
one.
That was good.
I think that was the
sick,
best.
yeah.
Well, that was super fun.
Yeah. All right. Let me get ourselves back on track though today. Let's go into some of the topics that we wanted to discuss. So starting off with the member stuff. Thank you to all of the people who came out to the live show, including our members who got advanced sales on those tickets to the live show that we did in Masters Toronto. Every week, you're also able to submit a member question, and this week's member question is from Deluxe, who says, after your success with a live crowd and a live episode, even myself not attending, it felt like I was there with how fun and interactive it was. Are we hoping to have more events like this, hopefully champs, or is it just a one-off event if things line up for people? And the answer is, I don't know. We were just kind of trying it for Toronto and seeing how it went. I mean, we booked a venue that was like, it got sold out in like, I think we released the tickets to the public at the beginning of a Plat Chat episode, and it was sold out like by the time we ended the episode. So
they were sold out before we started the episode.
Yeah, it was fast.
I made a mistake that episode. So normally I publish the live, video like 12 hours before we actually go live, but I had the link in the description of that video. So people posted on Reddit like overnight. I woke up to a link on Reddit. I'm like, oh man. So I won't do that
every
next
ticket
time.
was sold.
Yeah.
It is crazy too, because it's not just that like every ticket got bought up immediately. It's that like all of those people were real. Like Josh, when you were saying we were doing this, I don't know. I didn't think it would actually be like as legit and big as it was, but it was legitimately like 150 people showed up, and it was really fun. So.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Were you expecting non-real humans to be there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone just bought all the tickets and then just don't resell them, so it's just an empty crowd. It'd be sick.
I mean, that would be an insane troll. Can you imagine?
It'd be so good.
I don't think the
TMV
tickets...
with Cosmic Divide just buys up all
Yeah.
the Plat Chat tickets just to fuck with us.
Yeah, I
Force
mean,
us
you
to do it
could
to an empty
do it.
crowd.
You could do it. Just do an empty crowd. Get some beautiful crowd shots of no one there. It would have been great.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bren was unwell for this as well. He needed desperately to rest his voice during this event. But huge shout out to Shopify Rebellion for the insane space, and also to Dryad and Shio for being down to fill in for the whole episode too. It would have been great for us to be able to get like you know, Wyatt on the show, for example.
Yeah,
but
unfortunately, I was
had to
at
go
home, fucking Squidward looking out the window, watching this shit. So maybe next time.
Yeah. But as for the actual question of do we plan on doing more live events, I would love to get one going at Champs as well. I have no idea whether we'd have enough like English-speaking fans attending Champs, because I imagine a lot
Well,
of the
we
people
would do it
actually
in French, right?
Yeah, we'd have it. Yeah, we'd do
Way.
it way. Nous sommes du le Plat chat en français. Yeah, so I don't know if we'd get as many people as in Toronto, and I also don't know how easy it would be to find a space, but I'm down to explore options, and we're still quite a way out. So yeah, it's something that I'd like to see if it's possible for sure, because it was cool as fuck. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it's a nice like alternative to the co-streams, because we used to try to, like at Copenhagen, for example, we tried to do a co-stream at the same time as doing the casting for the live event, and that was difficult. It was cool, but it was like harder than we thought to actually rotate people out. So just having like a one-off thing in an off day is a very cool alternative, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right.
I was just gonna say, shout
go
out
on.
to all the people that came out. There was also like so many people that like brought stuff for us. It was really cute. Like, look at this bracelet. It says Plat Chat Live. There's like so many people like were so like passionate to like come and show stuff and like make things to give us, which was like incredibly cute. Wait, this one was awesome. I think let me try and hold it still here. This is Kurt, I believe. That's Brennan, Dan Dryad. This is you, Josh. The trains one is me. Where's Sliggy's the slug? Wyatt, you're the little award trophy. So yeah, shout out to everyone that came to the event. There were so many people who like put effort into like making things or just like showing up and being cool. So
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Let's talk about the train conductor though. Let's talk Paper X a little bit more, shall we? We'll properly dig into them. Sliggy, I want you to tell me at what point you started believing in this team properly, because I know that you believed in them, obviously.
Yeah.
You're famously believing in them. But then you didn't have the guts to be able to send them all the way from the beginning in your predictions. So when did that swap?
It swapped as soon as I saw G2, G-Lai, and RRQ's comps. And I was like, this is kind of on at the moment. Because I was looking at all their comps and they're playing like either no Yoru, but then they'll like keep the breach, or then they'll just play like, but everyone's playing like Flash Initiator instead of the Yoru, and everyone's going back to like the old Neon meta. And it's like, have we learned nothing from the past 2 months? And so yeah, as soon as I saw the comps from the other teams, I was like, man, I should have just gone for this and just gone the whole way, because it's so doable. I think all these teams messed up. I really do. And I'm not taking anything away from PaperX, because I think that they were really, really insane, and they were like probably the best at the Metro along with Wolves from what we saw. But I think that FNATIC coming second when every other Seed 1 team had like 40% more time than them is kind of crazy. And Wolves doing so well when they were a third seed as well is kind of crazy. Yeah, I think these other teams just kind of messed up. They played it too safe. That was when I started realizing, like, playoffs.
Yeah, I was hoping that I wasn't coping too much on the last episode that we did before we were heading into this, where I was perhaps in my mind over-indexing on the importance of PaperX already running a bunch of comps that would work in a post-Teo world, but that did end up being a big factor. And also, I loved what they came in with on Pearl as well. That adjustment to the comp, they were great there. Forsaken was just unreal, especially in the final. The impact that he was having, crazy. Like they were just incredible to watch. I mean, I was very worried after the Liquid game and losing to Gen.G, who it looked like they were about to win. But once they beat like the two NA teams in the playoff bracket, then it was on.
The win over G2 was like, that was a bit of a wake up call for me for sure, because I had G2 super highly. I was rating them like really well even coming into this tournament. And then I also think that G2 and FNATIC, the teams that are like historically good at absorbing aggression, should match up well stylistically against a team like PaperX. And then when PaperX beat them, and to be honest, even though the games were close, it was a 2-0, but the maps were close. But it did kind of feel like as soon as like Patman won a 1v3 on Split, that from that point onward, PaperX were just in control of the game. I felt like the whole time, and that was like hold on, this team is going to be able to beat even teams that like they should be finding it more challenging to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think coming into this like meta, like PaperX is also like uniquely postured. I think some of the teams we saw get like punished the most by the changes. I'm thinking of teams like RRQ, for example, or even like Shilai to an extent, despite the fact that they had a sub, where like the teams that were super big on like the strength of their run being like double initiator, dumping insane amount of util into their duelists and them having like crazy value in the Breach Teo meta. I think there was a lot of players that really shined with that because it was a meta where so much is being put into like take one part of the map with double refresh the duelist dives in, and then you wait 40 seconds, you default for a bit, then you take another part of the map with that utility. But when you're playing these like double smokes comps, or in PaperX cases like more of the like double duelist comps, you're so much more often like kind of on your own as like a dive player and having to like focus more on your pathing, focus more on how you play off like one single piece of utility. And I think PaperX like historically, they have always been really good at that kind of stuff, and I think that showed through here for both like Something and Jing still having really amazing tournaments coming into a new meta. I think it also even showed in teams like Gen.G, for example, where Texture had a outstanding tournament. Like I see him as one of like the best duelist players of like past double smoke solo initiator metas. And so I think that really helped them to have players who like didn't need all that support and could just be super self-sufficient on these duelist roles, while also kind of having guys who are comfortable with Forsaken's role change playing into like the double smoke stuff. It felt like it was a team that was really primed to succeed with the switch ups.
Yeah, I think so as well. And like when they're just like even like their Pearl stuff where they're just putting in because obviously in the main tournament in Pacific they were like they tried something on Yoru, it didn't really work. He was playing it a bit like a Jet, and then they went to Jet just because it was like small time comfort, and then they went back to the Yoru, kind of made it do everything that they did on Lotus, and then they just put Jing on a raise as well, and it's just like all the little pathing they had with the judge and stuff, it just lent so heavy into like their player style. And this was the kind of stuff that I thought other teams were going to do, where it's just like, this is brand new, this is first time we use this is for sure going to work. Like we're going to be able to spam B hits because of the Jing's like raise and the double satchels and the judge, and people aren't going to know what to do with it. And I just can't believe, I do think RRQ and G Life, I think you hit a good point, Wyatt. I think that like they're the biggest ones that probably had the misread of this, because it's also like they had Jemkin and Raga that were the best Yorus, and then they only played Yoru on like one map.
Tragic.
So it's like you've just erased the past 2 months and just gone back to when you essentially like weren't that good in the off-season meta. It was weird.
What do you think about PaperX in the finals on Pearl? Because of all the maps that should have been more one-sided, that was the one where I was like, wait, hold on, this actually feels like it could be winnable for FNATIC here.
The finals were sick because it's like, I was speaking on my stream and I was like, well, PaperX are 2-0 up, really, and unless they really mess up either Sunset or Pearl. And then FNATIC on the maps that they shouldn't be winning, which again is Sunset and Pearl, they want double pistol, and I was like, oh man, this is the perfect way for them to try and steal a map. Like this is what has to happen. So those maps were like really close, but when it actually got into the buy round, you could just feel that there wasn't enough time for FNATIC. At least on Pearl, you could just kind of tell that they only looked comfy one half, and then when it got to Sunset, Bosa's theory on Sunset, and again, most teams have different theories because there's like 3 points on Sunset which lead into 2 avenues, right? And so you can either kind of prioritize one of them. Bosa loves top mid, and I think that's good, and I think most teams aren't used to it, but they're also not used to the map, so it doesn't look comfy, and they kind of get stuck in middle and then get wrecked a little bit as people swing them. So it was just two rough maps for FNATIC, and it's like one of the first finals where we've seen the 2 map V2 advantage look huge.
Yeah, I think they really exposed FNATIC by, both having a perma and just like a map that they don't play. What I was going to say too is that PaperX, I didn't run the stats on it, but I would think, Josh?
I just knocked my water all over my lap.
Oh, that's beautiful. But I think if you were to look at the stats of teams that have won tournaments, I feel like PaperX has to be the team that has the lowest like pistol round and bonus round win rate of like anyone that has ever won a tournament. In this final, they only, out of 4 maps, so 8 possible pistol rounds, they only won 2. And on one of those, they got ecoed the round 2 after it. Like, this team just could not win a pistol to save their life and was playing from behind in every one of these games and still came back in to win 3 out of 4 of the maps that they went into here.
And I think on top of that as well, they lost so many fast kills. Like it was like no pistol rounds,
that was
and they were
crazy
losing
in the grand finals.
They were losing so many fast kills. So it's like, well, every single round they had
mostly,
like a disadvantage going.
It was mostly in the first 2 maps, though, as far as I'm aware. Like, it was mostly in Sunset and Icebox. They got whacked in terms of first kills, and I wasn't really paying attention to it until the end of like map 2, and I was like, holy shit, this has been absurdly one-sided so far. And yet they, you know, hadn't been losing like disastrously or anything.
I mean, and also beating FNATIC when they're dominating them on every map for pistol rounds, and you just had Alfajer putting up an all-timer grand final performance still wasn't enough to get them over the finish line against PaperX. Like, that is additionally a testament to how well they were playing. And this is very armchair psychologist, what I'm about to say, but bear with me. I felt like you could tell when PaperX were celebrating after round wins, when Forsaken was standing up, when they were getting excited, that there was more of a genuine belief than when you see players standing up and getting excited because they know they're supposed to. It felt like they really knew that this was actually going to be their time to win, and they could feel it themselves, that they weren't actually going to be in this choking position again. And I feel like you could see that throughout the entire playoff run. Like, Forsaken was such a genuine, confident leader in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like you could just like each game that went on, I feel like you could kind of see and feel the belief like more and more. I do want to give PaperX props though. Like how far they've come in. I know it's like the basics that we expect from other teams, but finding like the perfect level of like not overheating and then realizing when they need to make the plays and just being so good in team fights. And I don't think this is anything we've ever, like, this is League of Legends talk. We've never really spoken about like team fighting in Valorant, but they're so good at it. Like they're so good at double swings, fast person jumping, or like having some person that comes up with a plan and everyone being on top of it. I would say they're the best at it. And that's why it doesn't matter sometimes when they lose the first kill, because they're so good at being able to like get that kill back, or when it gets into a 3v3 where everyone's swinging at the same time and coming out on top of that. I think they're just so good with, they're just so good at team fighting. And once they kind of got the Euro stuff down of like macro play and how to play like defense a little bit better and have their defense stronger on sites, or even just purely like on attack, like 4-1ing, like they can 4-1 and they can actually cancel now because they have the option of someone lurking to go back and say, guys, I've made space on A, you can come back on A. Just adding those little things just makes them such a complete team, and they're so scary. Like it's like what Mimi said, they didn't have good pistols, they didn't have good pistol record, and they weren't getting a lot of the fast kills, and they still came out on top. Like, this is a really scary team now. They're learning everything that everyone else has, but they're better at the team fighting and the harder stuff.
One of the things I think they deserve a lot of credit for too is figuring out how to force team fights, because what I think they're excellent at is, as you try to default against them on your attack side, they will rope you into taking a big like 5v5 or 4v4 team fight when you're not really wanting to take it. And they're also good at doing that like in the choke points as you're execing. Like, you're expected to be able to take a site, and they instead brawl you and kind of just force the fight around the choke, which you're not expecting all the time. I thought when it came to like the way that they were defending on site, it was somewhat similar to what we saw from T1. I feel like this is now 2 events in a row where we're going away from this conventional wisdom of defensive teams being about utility game and about like trying to draw out the util and retake really cleanly. And like a lot of the best teams have played that style for a long time. I was looking at the stats. Again, this is the 2nd tournament in a row where the team that denies the plant the most wins the tournament. They had 47% of the time they didn't let their opponents plant, which is just ridiculous. Like, that's absurd. Like, most teams are letting their opponents plant like 60% of the time, so they're only denying like maybe half the time that PaperX. But it's a lot to do with the way that PaperX are forcing these team fights on defense as well. Sometimes, like, in areas where you would expect to just be fighting for map control, like Mound on Lotus, for example, they will try to turn that into a full-on brawl that wins or loses the round because they're so good at the actual fighting component.
Yeah, it's more entertaining as well. Not gonna lie. Like instead of seeing teams just be like, "Oh, let's play for retake," like people just going, "Up, we're gonna fight this spaces." It's just so awesome to see. That's why they're one of the most fun teams to watch, still, and always
For
have
sure.
been.
Yeah.
I think that's also one of the biggest reasons that they managed to, specifically on their attack sides, kind of cook both Fnatic and G2. I believe, Josh, I know you were looking into stats, but I believe Fnatic and G2 were the two teams at this tournament that were like playing and like letting the plant go down and playing for set retakes the most, at least from like the eye test. Fnatic especially is a team that like loves to play their set retakes. And what PaperX does really well is if you give that to them, I think they are better at any other team in the game right now at just grouping together, fighting up in their post plant, and just getting into these wild off angles that you don't expect. And while it looks like stupid positioning, even when people are in really weird spots, they do a great job of still having people in like complementary angles that like you would never really expect to have to break a crossfire there. I think of like their split against G2, where every A post plant, they are like fighting up, like playing just outside the smoke into screens, not tucked in the corner, but like literally out in the open. And most of these teams who play set retakes, they have very good util patterns for clearing out those default corners where crossfires are normally going to be. And when you're playing against PaperX, you have to really kind of rethink how you're using your retake utility, because they're in such odd positions sometimes, and they're so willing to fight together, and they're so good at trading off each other that it just caught these retake teams by surprise constantly. And they won so many attack round post plants against teams who just gave them sights because they were so good at forcing the fights in those positions and not just sitting back and letting the retake happen.
Wyatt mentioned it earlier on, the idea of like who was popping off in these big games. It's Forsaken who ends up winning the MVP. But if you look just at the grand finals, like match page, for example, the player that stands out, you could argue, is Alfajer with his like plus 20, 99 kills, etc. So first of all, the argument for Forsaken, he was a nutcase. I mean, he was drawing out so much. I felt like every time he was contesting Fnatic, they would have to throw 3 times as much util as the normal player, because he'd just be like back on the line, constantly re-challenging, throwing weird smokes in weird positions and then fighting around it. I think Mel said it on the desk that like everything about Forsaken is about impact rather than something to do with stats. It's like the way he takes the fights, the amount of pressure he applies, and the kills he gets are all extremely impactful.
Yeah, and I think that's why, because coming into this, I was like, I'm not even sure, because if Fnatic won, I was like, Alpha gets it pretty much unless he has like a really bad final. But then when it comes to PaperX, I was like, this is pretty open, like who can actually win this at the moment. It was kind of like Jing, Devi maybe performing like the best in the team, and then it's like you said, the amount of impact. If you literally just go next kill decides the round, I swear 9 out of 10 times it was a Forsaken kill, and like some of the stuff he's just doing with util and just like flash to enable his teams, it's just it was mad impact every single time we watch him. So it's kind of cool that we didn't really get an MVP that was like off of stats. It was more just like the actual impact on the final itself. Even though I think if Alpha isn't winning MVP here, I don't think we'll ever see a team that loses get the MVP, because this is insane performance from him. Like if you take the winner out of it, he does deserve it. But Forsaken's impact in this final was crazy. And again, the stats don't do it justice. That's also awesome to see that he still got it, because yeah, just the most impactful player on PaperX in this final, hands down.
Yeah, it felt like as well with him, every time there was someone, or any time rather, there was a pivotal round to win, that was always the round he would find a multi-kill as well. So many 2Ks out of what felt like thin air, because he decided to make a proactive play at the opportune moment, and that would be on a swing round. That came up countless times. There were a few really important moments of that on Lotus. He was really doing it all. He was just fantastic in that final.
He's one of he is the best flex, and the thing that I find amazing as well, and there's two examples of this in just this tournament alone. The 1v1 against John QT with the smokes, right? So when he's playing smokes, he's smarter than most smoke players, and he's a flex. Like, he's smarter than most smoke players, like, where he smokes in front. So most people would smoke themselves in the spike, right? So John would get into the smoke, see him early. But he smokes, so he has to go, like, all the way through before he can get to him to actually get that shot in the 1v1 against John on Sunset. And then he does something similar where he leaks the smoke over towards the left in the 4v2 against FNATIC so that he can sneak back out over towards site after killing Bolster. He's one of the smartest players we've ever seen, and he's a flex player doing it better than smoke mains.
This isn't even a new thing. Back when he played Harbor, he's so creative in terms of how he's using like his coves for his team to spill out into sites and the walls and stuff. I think some aspect of the way that PaperX plays really forces their players to be thoughtful about the game, and sometimes I think they learned the wrong thing, and we've seen that over the history of them, like, you know, getting caught in traps over and over. But I think one of the things that their playstyle has really lent them is this sense of creativity that has persisted even when the playstyle tightens up a bit. You still get the small flares of understanding how to create an advantage with a piece of utility that some of the teams don't quite, because they're just kind of going through the motion.
I think they also just are very good at like noticing when their teammate does something like that and immediately like considering and realizing very quickly how to play around it. Like they are the best team at playing in situations that you are not seeing every day in scrims and like realizing the best way to play that really quickly. This is the round that you were talking about, Sliggy, but that smoke absolutely cooks John, has to run through it, can't get the kill, and then that's him going on. It could have been a very different tournament if John had gotten him off there, because then we go to OT on Sunset, we go to Pearl Map 3, who knows what happens then, but they win it, go on to the final.
That's why it's like the best run ever, because I'm pretty sure there's like 4 or 5 games where you could look back and go, man, if they didn't win this round, they're not even here.
Literally both of these games against G2, it was an 11 or a 12-11. They're up. Comes down to a tight round. They win it. Same against Sentinels in that game. The Wolves game, also, you had like the OT on Lotus map 1. Like, there were so many moments where like one little thing going differently could have swayed it the other way, but instead, nope. Easy 3 games through the uppers, 2-0 in every one of them, and then they get that upper bracket advantage, which, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but that was just so big for them to expose the weaknesses in Fnatic's map pool. Just, 2 free wins, and now we have our first grand final. Wahoo.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the tournament going another way. Y'all remember that Liquid game that PaperX played?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh my god, yeah.
I mean,
The further back you go, that's what I mean. There's more and more. Like the Liquid game, Paddy had a chance. And
all
then
of their qualification games as well.
The FM,
so you can get there in the first place.
Jing did a crazy 1v2 in the DFM game where he's behind a Phoenix wall. He puts out the Phoenix wall. He gets scanned by a Sova, and he 1v2s while scanned. Like there's some mad rounds when you look back at it and go, "Damn, this was the sickest run ever." Because they shouldn't be here.
I think someone posted something to Reddit, maybe even today, where it was like they've played them. I think the stat was, and I can't find the source at the moment, but I think the stat was that they've played the most necessary matches to get to win an event in the post-partnership era. So from 2023 onwards, including qualification and at the tournament itself, they had the most wins where it was like must win or you're out. Oh, here we go. There we go. Kurt's the god. So like obviously FBX at Copenhagen also won like, was it the second most? No, of course, because 2022 is pre-partnership. Yeah. So Sentinels and FPX played more, but mostly in Sentinel's case, that's because we had open qualifiers back then. And in FPX's case, that one is legit, by the way. Like, I don't think saying pre-partnership just kind of cuts them off, but theirs was insanely legit because they ran an unbelievable lower bracket run when they had one of their best players out as well. But, whether you want to call it first or second, whatever, like that's an incredibly good and unlikely run. And it doesn't feel like that as much because they went through the upper bracket too. But yeah, when you bring it up, there's so many moments like that. I do just want to talk about that Alfajer MVP though. I don't know whether people realize because I was seeing a lot of discourse about it, but I think people don't quite understand that the MVP is a vote now that it's an official thing. It's like there are people that get to vote on it, including the casters. I can't remember exactly who all gets to vote on it.
I think it's like broadcast talent. I think co-streamers who are like official get to vote. I think as well like certain like press and media get to. There might be more groups than that, but I'm pretty sure on at least those 3 groups getting a vote.
I mean, I can tell you I voted for Alfajer. In classic PaperX hater fashion,
and that's what I was waiting. That's what I was waiting for. You were setting it up. I'm like, yep, just tell me that you voted for a player on the team that lost.
But one's surprised. Yeah.
But I really think the Wyatt... I think it was you that said this, Wyatt, wasn't it? That like if Alpha doesn't win this one, no team is ever going to win.
I said it.
Oh, Sliggy said that, yeah.
I agree. I mean, it's just like...
It's the most absurd carry performance from a player that's lost. I talked to Alpha afterwards. He was like, I think I played better than at Tokyo. I think this is my best global tournament ever. And I was like...
Insane.
It looked like he was aimbotting the whole tournament. When he was on Chamber, it looked like he had cheats on. Every time you were watching him on Ascent, every single shot would just snap onto everyone perfectly. Whenever he had a scoped weapon, he was just hitting unnecessary headshots every single time, for no good reason at all.
When he's in this form, it's disgusting. And like it felt like it all started with the chamber game, because then it's like started with the chamber game, and then he was hitting everything with like either the chamber or like an op, and then he just started bringing that over, and it's just like, well, I'm Sentinel on attack on Icebox, I'm gonna op all the time, or I'm buying an outlaw, and he just had full freedom. He was an absolute monster. And yeah, it is I don't know. It's a hard one because I think I would still vote for Forsaken, because I was saying it on stream. It's so hard to vote for the team that didn't win.
Why though?
Yeah.
It just is, because it's like
because
they were
don't hate PaperX.
like Forsaken was the reason that they won so many rounds to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I think when I'm thinking about an MVP title, like they have restricted it so it can only come from the top 2 teams.
Yeah.
So you can't vote for like texture or something. But,
dude, if it could be anyone, I would have had a strong temptation to vote for Spring. Because like I don't think that Wolves run, I don't think they get anywhere near top 3 if he doesn't play as good as he did.
True.
Yeah.
They bring him out of the crowd to give him MVP.
Doesn't even realize he's at the hotel. Oh, what the fuck? I have to go to the arena. Yeah. I again though, for me as well though. Yes, Alfajer was obviously unbelievable, but it compounds to me where then you're looking at Forsaken, who had to play against him, against Chronicle was in sicko form. Kayak's debut was fucking crazy. And he beat them. And was the highest impact player on the team that beat them. He had to kill those guys, and every time we're on their POVs, they're aimbotting. Like, that just makes it even better to me. So, like, it's just, I don't know, I just can't go with anyone but Forsaken, personally. Even though Alpha was obviously unbelievable, and I do think that was his best tournament he's ever played.
I will say, I think Forsaken was a better pick, but narratively, Jing winning MVP would have been like a really sick full circle from like playing incredible in the Champs Finals, like crying on stage, thinking it was going to be like his last ever game as like a pro Valorant player, and then like 2 years later, he's back ready to win another trophy and like actually pull it off. Would have been a sick narrative. I mean, just winning the trophy is a sick narrative already, but Forsaken definitely deserved it. Not just for like the smokes, but also just for like stepping up as a leader for the team too. Like there was so long that I feel like no one really like stepped up the way they needed to in like the low times, but I think you have to credit a lot of the turnaround of this team to Forsaken and like his growth as a player from the first final they lost in like Copenhagen to now finally winning a trophy years on. He is so different from the player he was then.
All right, let's talk about FNATIC then. Let's move on to talking about them for a little bit. So Alpha obviously has an outrageous tournament. Insane. Unbelievable. I feel like Chronicle also had an insane tournament too. A lot of the fans are pissed at Boaster because they just look at his grand finals performance where he wasn't playing particularly well. He also posted on Insta about like hinting towards the fact that he was unwell or something. He said something along the lines of, I wish what I could have just waited for one more day, bro. Something like that. implying that he had some kind of like illness on the day of the grand finals. But I find it insanely difficult to give Boaster shit for this game because I feel like the bandwidth of calling against Paper-Rex is
Paperworks.
Yeah, I was gonna let it slide. I was like, is anyone gonna bring it up? I'll let it slide. Let it.
It's so difficult to call against a team that's playing this unusual style, and I think if you're gonna give the IGLs a pass in any game, a grand finals where you're playing against these guys in a BO5 and the guy's like probably not 100% these are exactly the games where you got to give him a pass, and he was still calling some great moments.
I think it's so I would like separate it a little bit because in my opinion, like the comps and what he did in some other games were the reason that they got to here, and I think that if you're giving him shit for this one game, then you should probably give everyone else from the other team shit in terms of their comps, how they played. Like I think everyone should be getting an equal amount of shit for that, but you can't really be putting up these numbers in a final. So I do understand why he is getting shit. But again, most people just look at the stats and they don't like actually come into thinking about the actual comps, and like the reason that they got there was like Sage on Icebox and their new Ascent comp and stuff like that. So again, they outsmarted all the other Seed 1 teams by doing this stuff. But I can see why people are a little like it's free pickings just because you can't really have this bad a performance in the final. So I get both sides of it, but I would never flame Boaster just because I know the amount of stuff he does, like outside of the server, and they're the reason that they got he's the reason they got to the final in general. He's the reason, like literally, if you just isolate the Icebox and the Ascent, they don't get to the final like without these. And that's him just thinking outside the box, coming up with new stuff. So although the bad performance, in my opinion, is one of the reasons they lost the final, they wouldn't be there without him. So it's like you gotta think of everything really.
Yeah, and I also don't want to weigh too heavily into a worse performance than usual. I mean, we're obviously never looking at him to be the all-star fragging player on this team.
No.
But, and even at that status, this was a worse performance than his usual, so I don't want to overreact. He's not had a performance of this tier in any of the other grand finals that Fnatic have ever played in, as far as I remember.
Or even he didn't even have a bad tournament.
No,
You know what I
he didn't
mean?
have a
Like
bad
that's the
tournament.
thing. That's the thing that I think just exposes this immediately as just being too reactive. Is like if he had a bad tournament and the whole tournament was rough, even though Fnatic got deep, then all right, then we can start having this conversation. But like the guy has a bad day. Then I think we're overreacting a little bit.
It is isolated, and you also have to kind of factor in that he's trying to IGL on their two maps that used to be their permabans. Like it doesn't feel comfortable for him as an IGL as well. So there is a lot of factors. But yeah, I get it. I think he only had like 2 bad games. I think he didn't have that good a game against Sentinels, but again, he kind of called them to a victory anyway. So yeah, it's just isolated. People just looking at the final on its own.
He might end up being, because he's so good at leading the team, coming up with ideas, doing all of the stuff that's outside of the server. There is a world, I think, where he survives all the other like low fragging IGL players, and he ends up being a real outlier in that sense.
I said this on my stream. I was like, I have, because again, I was like flaming a lot of the Seed 1 teams that came in. And again, Fnatic had 40% less time than the XLG and G2. And so for them in 40% less time to come up with better stuff than they can and have a better read on the meta is very, very impressive. And to be fragging and doing the stuff that he was doing on certain maps is very impressive. I said on my stream, I think this guy can go till he's like 40, man. I think he's the guy to kind of break it if he has the willpower. No, it's legit, because he has such a better understanding than everyone else, and the game changes too much. Like, I genuinely believe he's got it. I think he can do it. It's just if he can tank the mental.
I'd love to see some real dads and fathers leading teams in the future.
It'd be sick, man. It'd be sick.
Some honest to God old ass men leading these teams.
He's already like not. He looks young, but he's already not like a super young guy, right?
He's 30, right?
He's 30.
Yeah, he's 30.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
I'm pushing
twisted.
30, and I feel young as fuck, Josh. So
Yeah,
relax,
he's got 10 more years
buddy.
in him.
But
so that would be another decade. He's like there at when Valorant turns 15, and he's like, yeah, let's
Yeah,
go.
he's got it.
I still though I I'm walking away incredibly impressed by FNATIC overall. They had to go on a crazy lower bracket run because Gen.G decided to be a phenomenal team for part of this tournament, and it just knocked them into the lowers right away. And they even had a decent enough showing against them. Kayak's debut was incredible. I rate him so highly at the moment, among the best players in the world of right now. I think there's a lot to take away to be very satisfied about with this team, and I am walking away from this tournament expecting them to be finishing in a very similar position, like top 3, when we get to champs. I don't see this team being one that has variance. I trust their ability to stay within this top 3.
You know what's crazy too is they've actually never really had variance. What's fucked up is everyone like 2024. 2024 was a bad year for FNATIC because they had a great team that had just done the back-to-back, and then they didn't really do much at global events. They also won both tournaments in EMEA, and then ended up actually, like, you know, getting some like decent performances. Not incredible, but some decent performances at global events as well. It's kind of absurd what this, like, at the end of this grand finals, because PaperX won, I was totting up all of the performances that these teams have had at global events and what they've done domestically too. I think it's somewhat inarguable. Maybe there's a small argument, but I'll break it down. I think FNATIC are inarguably the #1 team of all time in terms of what they've achieved. It's just been absolutely bonkers, especially if you're going back to like, Boaster with his grand finals.
I don't think you can debate that.
No, but then the second best, with PaperX winning here, they've almost like it's almost inarguable that they've overtaken Optic, Loud, the Optic NRG and Loud kind of cause, because they've done the same thing. They've got a win, they've got 2 grand finals losses, they've got double top 3s and a top 4. They've kind of outlasted and therefore overtaken those teams as well. And so the only team that you could even debate is better than them is Sentinels, because they've got 2 wins. And for me, fuck Sen, because that was a different team entirely. Like, I don't think that even falls into the same discussion.
I think it's actually more legit with
just the most inflammatory way to make that point. You could just say,
but he's right.
I just don't count Sen as being as relevant due to the massive roster changes that they had over the years.
But you see why I've got to
fuck them for changing the roster. Oh, dude, relax, Josh.
I've got to throw in some of that so that the PaperX fans get distracted. Like, oh no, he hates everyone.
He needs to find his new hatred, his new thing. I think for PaperX too, it's doubly impressive because they have a core 3 players still from like when they were playing all the way back in fucking Copenhagen. You can't even say that FNATIC doesn't have a core anymore. It's one player from like that initial team that is like left from when they did well in Reykjavik. And obviously like 2022, you added Alpha, Kron's been with the team for a while now. Like that 2022 team still has a core. But if you're rewinding all the way back, that that FNATIC team is gone besides Boaster. But for PaperX, it is literally like the same 3 players, the same like style. Like I think FNATIC and PaperX are the only 2 teams that like maintained an identity through the years. PaperX, it's changed a little, but it's always been like W Gaming, Insane Aimers, Insane Duelist players. FNATIC has always been like, you know what, they're always pushing the meta. They find these really good comps and they absolutely like maximize every detail to get as good as possible. It's a Boaster-led team. He brings up this young talent. Like, they've both had the same story for like 4 years. And that's why I think it's like hard to argue for anyone else, because the other organizations that have that kind of pedigree have had massive shifts in identity or big changes in players or things like that I think kind of put them out of the running.
It's the end of season 2 of Valorant. Like, season 1, I feel, was like, I don't know, the Sentinels arc or something. They do well at the beginning and then they rebound. And then season 2 is all about like PaperX and Pacific and, finding their win after so long. And now we've got to come up with a new narrative for season 3. So maybe Wolves?
Okay.
I mean, maybe there should have been a season actually in there about the rise of China too. But maybe the EDG win was actually just a precursor to season 3. And season 3's true story is going to be about the Chinese squad. So let's talk about Wolves, though, in their 3rd place run. This was the first ever tournament where China's average placement put them as the 2nd best region. which I was kind of amazed when I went back that even EDG winning champs didn't bump the region overall into second place. But because XLG like got a booking straight through to playoffs, this one actually, ended up being even better for them. But my God, what a run from a team that I don't think anybody was expecting.
Is this the team going into an international event that had the least expectations and the best performance?
I think the only
T1.
other... But T1, we had the least expectations for T1 out of the 8 teams that were there. But the roster was still, like, they built that roster
Yeah, but we're
to
the
try
only ones
to
whose opinions matter.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
But
That's
even
not
then,
good.
if you,
I'm kidding.
even if you want to take that argument, like, we still only put T1 in 8th. We had Wolves in 11th.
That's
Yeah.
more teams though, right?
And we only
Well,
put Wolves in
yeah.
11th because of TMV's heart and his conviction. It wasn't even because we wanted them
No,
11th.
they should have been in 12th.
So that was sort of a fraudulent 11th. But yeah, I mean, inherently, you're just rating T1 as a higher team, even though they're in 8th, because it's just a tighter field in the tournament where the quality of teams is supposed to be higher due to the lack of 12 or 16 being there. I mean, there's the Zeta run from back
that's
in the
pretty
day.
Close. That is pretty close.
Is there anything else that compares to these two?
It's
I think
so
the Wolves
similar
run
to
is
the Zeta
better
one.
than Zeta.
Yeah, the Wolves run is so much
trying
better.
I'm trying to remember what happened in the Zeta one. I got to go back and look, actually. This
They
is so
played
long
against,
ago now.
I believe, Liquid that didn't have their full roster like right before the event.
We were.
And
we
they
were
played
that
against the
team.
worst
Was that,
teams.
wait, was that Reykjavik? Which one was
Yeah,
it?
it was
Reykjavik.
Second.
Two?
Second
But it was the
Reykjavik,
second
yeah.
Reykjavik,
Yeah.
yeah.
They did play well at that event. I remember that they played a lot better than they did in Japan, and I remember that they were quite shit. But it's quite similar, honestly, to here. Like Wolves were not underrated in the sense that we didn't see their true form or something, or we ignored them. They actually just played a lot better. And I think a decent part of this too, though, is because of the meta shift and the time between when we saw them and then when we saw them again. Because for the Chinese teams, it was a long time
it was a
between
long
us
time,
seeing
yeah.
them. I don't know actually how long it was,
They-
but it was.
They still had to play the EWC qualifiers, so they did play like a little bit as well. But they did. They just had such a better read than the majority of the teams.
I'm
on
looking.
this.
I'm looking back at those qualifiers though, and those I didn't watch. But they lost to Titan Esports Club
Yeah.
2-1, and then they got 3-0'd by Trace. So like, even if you had watched those matches after Stage 1, you wouldn't have come in thinking, "Oh yeah, Wolves is the team to get top 3."
They just had new stuff. They had new stuff, and they weren't playing Flash Initiator. Like they had the better read. That's all it was. They had
Yeah.
smart stuff. All their players performed to a really good level. They got so much like belief from beating Heretics early on, and it just kind of snowballed. And like we've said this before about Wolves, that they probably have like at least like the second best on paper team just from in China. Like we said it quite a
Yeah,
lot.
they got
that-
quality roster.
that they have quality, yeah, and this was like the first time they actually got good belief. And they, again, I think the coaching staff deserves a huge shout out. They had sick anti-strat. If you watch them, especially like on their Lotus, they always had like really good anti for like the teams that they're playing on Lotus. And then their just comps were just way better than the other teams that had more time than them. It's kind of nuts, dude.
Can I give you a little story from talking to the Wolves coach?
Sure.
I was.
Please.
I don't think he'll mind me sharing this. It was cute as fuck. I was sat there in the makeup chair. They're making sure that my mustache could poke out a walrus's eyeball at 20 paces, and the Wolves coach comes up behind me and is like, "Hey, how's it going? How's it going? Nice to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh, nice to meet you too." And he's like, "Oh, is TMV gonna be at like Paris or something?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, I hope he is. I hope you guys and TMV end up going." And he's like, "Man, I don't think we would have made it without that guy." And I'm like, huh? And he's like, yeah. I mean, obviously the support is fantastic too. But then the coach is saying, I often like rewatching our games on TMV's stream just because it's fun. And also sometimes he has some good insight too. And so he's like giving some credit to TMV for their run in a way that I was not expecting. But it was so wholesome. Like, I don't think they expected to have a like base of support outside China at all.
That's so
And
cute.
the fact that it ended up
It's certainly
being
not from the
important-
football fans.
I know.
It's certainly not from
I-
those
I
guys.
have
The
loved-
replies under all their tweets are so fucking funny. Like, Hey, nobody gives a fuck. When are the roster moves coming? Just all of them.
It's really sweet though.
The
honestly.
football fans crashing out. The Wolves announced they're building like a big like gaming facility or like arena thing. I don't fully remember in Chongqing, and then like every comment is just like, when are you gonna put any fucking money into the team? We've been bad for 5 years. It's the crash out from every football fan. It's so awesome. But to your point, Lee, I think like it should be reiterated that Wolves was not a team that was a #1 seed that had like 8 years to prepare for this tournament, but they were one of the few teams who still like changed a lot of their comps and like took risks in the meta. Like for example, I loved their deadlock stuff. I think the way they played that comp on Ascent was really, really nice. Like how they called their attacking sides, they're like using sensors to like keep space they've taken and then like double back on the mid rounding. I like their like double duelist ideas that they showed on Sunset as well. That looked really good, and it was pretty different from a lot of the other comps they were showing. They also looked good with like the more default double smoke stuff. Like I think Wolves showed a lot of like range with what comps they were able to play, and also to like some extent what styles they were willing to play. I mean, they were mostly this like very slow, like mid-roundy double controller team, but I also thought like in the deadlock maps they had some like really nice like set executes and faster strats and stuff too. And all of that to me just shows like a crazy amount of like prep and also like willingness to like change things up and take risks going into a big tournament, which I think is key for a run like this.
Yeah, they weren't scared of doing stuff, and even like their split comp. The split comp's like pretty traditional. But they use like so much Viper pressure on over towards B with the smoke and the wall, and then just normal Cypher stuff. And then sometimes it weren't good doing their Cypher stuff, so teams were like wondering what the hell they're doing. Like they did just change it up all the time, and it's a big lesson for a lot of teams that went to this event because it's a whole new meta. If you bring new stuff, you're gonna win. Like you are gonna win. Wolves is a good example. Even Gen.G at the beginning were a good example. FNATIC, good example. But if you go back to the old stuff, when you're like, I know that everyone's talking about like momentum of like going through groups and stuff, but when you join a server and you look at the comp and you go, oh, it's 2023 comp, we played against this for like 2 years. Like you're not going to expect anything new. Like the fact that Wolves came up with new stuff all the time, it's so hard to deal with on the server. And I just think that's what they did so well. So again, like I think that loads of the players played great. I think Spring was the big standout, especially like his attacking Viper. He has probably one of the best understandings for what I've seen. His timing is like really, really good, especially on like lurks and like pressure and like when he should try and take the risks. But again, I just think that the coaching stuff did so good here. Like they really understood the meta, and yeah, they just lent into like the strengths of their players for sure. And like the double duelist stuff looks really nice as well. And I think Sui Fat Baby is just a beast, man. He's a beast. He's a great leader.
His aura was so fucking...
He's awesome.
It was so good to watch at this tournament, the amount that he was like, just getting into the idea of playing on the stage. It was sick. All of the Chinese teams just have like one guy who's incredibly good on camera. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, they were cool though.
I wanted to ask, in the context of Zeta Division, right, if that's the most comparable run, even though we're saying this one's a little bit more impressive, Zeta immediately dropped off, and they've never replicated anything even close. Like, the drop-off was as fast as the ascension, essentially. I mean, it's not... There's never been a glimmer again. It was a real, like, fluke run. And I think it's fair to say that with the amount of distance that we have from it now. Is this going to be similar? Or are there reasons to believe that this is different and Wolves are going to be able to do maybe not something the same, okay? Maybe not third, but something where they go playoffs, 5th, 6th, you know, something like that in a future tournament, be it champs or be it the year after.
Yeah, just purely because the meta changes so much and the coaches and players have been proven to be very good at that, like a fast change up and then learning what to do. Even in kickoff, they tried Teo like the first week they could. Like they have a good understanding of like what's good. And I think that the players look legit. And I think that the one thing they probably didn't have before this was like belief that they can actually do it, even though they might have self-belief. So actually like doing it and getting results is dude, they're getting out of groups again within the next year. If that's what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
Look at how long it took like EDG to even like make it out of groups the first time when they were going to global events. They were just like going out early so frequently. It was only, I think, Masters Tokyo, the first time that they like made it out of groups. They started going on a run. They made top 3 there. That took them like a year and a half
Sixth
of fifth,
Tokyo.
sixth. Sorry, not top 3. That took them like a year and a half to get to that point. And Wolves has done it in their first tournament. You look at any other Chinese team that has gone to an event, like your Billy Billies, your FPXs. None of them made it out of groups. And here's this team that like got some big upset wins, kind of has that belief in themselves now, has shown to not just have like great players, but also like an ability to come up with new ideas in the meta and really well like anti-strat and prep against like top tier opposition. And yeah, I mean, I think like they know they can be good now, and as long as I don't know, something crazy doesn't happen and they just have like a massive fall off going back to China, I would really expect to see them again, and at least for them to be a team that is always like that like edge team that's like, hey, they could make it out of groups, they might not, but they probably can, and they can be a real risk if they get rolling at a tournament.
Now, why are you chuckling?
Yeah, I did. I was looking at him.
Now,
What
why
are
are
you
you
laughing
chuckling at
about?
that?
I saw a funny image online.
Oh, really? Really? It wasn't Mimi describing them as the edge team.
No.
No?
That was just a funny
Just a funny
picture
little,
on the
funny
internet.
meme,
I
a
saw.
funny
Nothing.
meme.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
scrolling.
what else would that mean, them being an edge team?
So I have a point about Wolves actually that I'd like to share.
Yep.
Let me think of something.
No,
No,
he's
okay.
No. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer. I don't want to bring the vibe down, because I had a great time watching Wolves, casting Wolves, everything Wolf related. I thought was great. But I will say my only worry as we move on from this point, the journey of the Wolves, is looking at the individual player variance, because I felt that it was too high on their run to getting here, and then was so consistent throughout this tournament that I'm hoping it stays that way, but I have some level of concern about that in the future, because the level that was maintained by Spring, Juicy, Sufat was pretty fucking bonkers. And those guys had those moments for me in their run, but there were also moments where they were just trying to do too much, and they were making individual plays that resulted in just negatively impacting the team, because they were going for too many individual fights at times, or players were getting disconnected, being too enthusiastic about taking a duel before the rest of the pack, or someone could be there to assist. I hope that is not the case moving forward, and that they've broken past or just elevated their level to a more consistent place in that way. And then I will have a ton of confidence in them. So I want to see that as we head back to the regional seasons. Give me some consistency, and I will be a full-on believer.
They're just inexperienced players though, so I guess that is like the biggest argument for that, is just give them some time. I do think when I watch Wolves as well, and there's a lot of teams, and I don't think that we actually like talk about this point enough, is that there's certain teams that I think are very good at the league format, right? Where you have like some kind of comp that you can play multiple times that's like fleshed out to a really high level. And there's definitely teams that are like very good at these tournaments where it's like double a limb, or just like you only have to win like 2-3 games and you're through, and then there's like time in between to change stuff, or games that are like fast next to each other. So I think that they're very good at like a tournament that's like this, instead of like maybe a league format from what we've seen. I do think the best example is probably like K-Cup or like Eng as a coach. I think he's not great at league formats, but I think he's very good in just like a small condensed tournament where you can have stuff that is new and it can get you pretty far. So I think if they can kind of get through the league stages and actually get to these events, I have faith that they'll be able to get through groups again, because again, I think they're very good in a short amount of time to come up with new stuff, good anti, and they will like win them rounds and games to get through tournaments like this instead of like a league format.
Well, let's move on from talking to Wolves to talking about a team that's one of the favorites at this tournament. I think coming in, I think they would have been almost everybody's consensus best team, but it's G2. And now we heard, I think one of the best ways to set them up is that we heard Valen in the tournament talking about they want to rewrite the narrative. I think that was in the G2 game against Gen.G. And despite winning that, I think they have rewritten the narrative around their team a little bit, but in the opposite direction to the one that they wanted. And this isn't necessarily even with a bad performance here. They finished in 4th place, but the fact that they've gone home again without a trophy, and this time without making it to a grand finals, without even an opportunity to defend their failures at Bangkok, I think it now becomes much more difficult to talk about them as the like de facto best team of the year. Now, I don't know who necessarily your best team of the year would be, because shit's been crazy this year. But G2 have gotten close again, but less close than Bangkok this time.
Sure. They still could be the best team of the year, depending on what happens at Champs.
Of course.
It would likely require a win.
I mean,
I don't know if we would give them that if they get second again. It's not thrilling to crown your team of the year one that gets second twice. And that would also require, PaperX, FNATIC, and in T1 to not be relevant in the tournament for that to even be a possibility. So it does require a win at this point. Ultimately, they do lose to both finalist teams, but the losses were not giving me a lot to chew on in terms of...
You don't think so in the FNATIC game? Because I think in the FNATIC game, they played in both of those maps a really competitive game where it like came down from both teams. I think like having these like really like back and forth adaptations. Like I think G2 had at the start of the second half with Lotus on their defense, they kind of had FNATIC figured out, and then FNATIC call a timeout, and they end up winning like 4 rounds in a row by changing up the way they were playing around A. And then it was like a really similar story on Split, where like G2 is in a solid position, FNATIC call a timeout, and then just like pull this like streak of rounds right at the end, 4 in a row.
That's fair. I think when I'm making that statement, what's more highlighted in my mind is that there was such an individual skill gap in these games. Between in that FNATIC game specifically, between the two teams, that highlighted a lot of that matchup to me.
I mean, in the G2 FNATIC game, just to give you a hint, I mean, Jorg goes -15 with -10 first kill to first death. Alfajer on the other side goes +20 basically with +12 first kill to first death. Like there was some monster performances coming out from the FNATIC guys. Alpha Chronicle in particular just felt unstoppable in the game against G2. It was outrageous, I think.
Yeah, they had they just had a bad map pool, in my opinion. They had Split, which looked really bad. I'll be honest. I don't think that Split looked good. If you look at the games they played, they win in double pistol, and then they're just scraping 10 rounds. Happened against PaperX, happened against FNATIC. And then every single time for both of the games they lost, they picked the teams that they're playing's best map. You pick PaperX. You could argue that Sunset is their best map, but obviously it gets vetoed. Against PaperX, they picked Lotus. And against FNATIC, they picked Lotus. And it's like, they came into the PaperX game and they had a breach. They had the 2024 off-season comp with Neon. And it's like, well, that's not really going to work. And they're like, we're really going to exploit the holes in our enemies' defense and stuff. And then they on defense just play a no Sentinel comp and then let PaperX have a main all the time. And it's like, well, you're not understanding how your comp works, and you're playing an old comp which they're pretty used to playing against. And then over towards Split, it doesn't look good. You can't be winning this many pistols and only getting 10 rounds against PaperX and FNATIC. So I don't know. I just think I get that Jorgamo had a rough time, but there's no extra thought to set him up. Like he's destined to fail with how they're playing this. Like especially at the beginning, like they're playing a breach Neon. It's not really going to work these days with everything that's strong. And then you're also going to like struggle against the Vice stuff. And then they're changing up and they're bringing back a Teo, which is like one of the worst agents at the moment. Even though again it had like okay win rate, I think no, not even that. I think maybe that was 20%. I don't know. They were just really far behind. They really were. I think we need to kind of go in on them a bit.
They had to be the team that most heavily indexed into playing Breach in this tournament, surely.
Yeah.
Right?
I think one of them, at least like, I think like teams like MIBR and stuff did that as well.
Sure.
But I don't get how you can look at the Yoru meta and then keep a Breach. I really don't. It doesn't make sense to me. I think they had a bad read and they got exploited on their maps instantly. And the fact that they thought they were good at Lotus, picking Lotus against PaperX, kind of crazy, played it wrong, and then changed their comp next time. Like it was rough from G2. Had the most time out of all the Seed 1 teams, and they brought in nothing new apart from a Sage on Icebox.
Yeah.
It did feel like they felt as though we have been so good and so consistent. Let's try and perhaps change the least and attempt to maintain the level of consistency with a similar enough look to what we have been doing. But I think that does beg the question as to now they, as far as I know, they're basically just guaranteed for champs, if not guaranteed already.
No, they
right?
literally
are.
are.
No, they
Literally
are guaranteed for
guaranteed.
champs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be more than down to see them get experimental in this next stage of Americas. I don't know exactly how they would fully run it with someone needing a sentinel, but damn, I'd be curious to see these guys try double duelists with Leaf playing Raze with these guys, or any. I mean, I would trust Leaf to play any fucking agent in this game at a really high level.
I agree.
So
Real.
he could play anything. When he was playing duelist initially with them, his Raze was excellent. He was getting minimum 20 kills every game. Razor Jet. I can't really recall if he was ever playing Yoru historically. I don't think so.
Not when he was a duelist player. No.
But I'm gonna assume he's really good on Yoru too if they want him to run that and want genres. I would love to see them experiment a bit in this next stage of Americas, if not for the sake of my own curiosity. Because they have two players that are incredible duelists.
And I think they will try stuff like that as well. And I think with how good Leaf is at Chamber, I think they can experiment with some like the Vice Chamber stuff that Fnatic were bringing out. This is a team that would work very well for that kind of stuff. I don't know. And again, I'm like one of the biggest G2 supporters. I think they're great. I predict them a lot because I love watching them because they play some of the best Valorant ever. But I was just disappointed this event that this is what they came out with. It just felt like you had the most time and you came in with honestly like some of the least thought process, in my opinion, for a lot of stuff.
I do want to shoot them a little bail because I think on like some of their maps, like let's say like their Split or their Haven even, like I was kind of like, obviously like now in retrospect looking at what a lot of other teams did, I think there could have been other options, but I do think coming out of a Teo meta, like just pivoting on some of these maps to just like a scout initiator in place of your Teo did make a lot of sense. And I think that like that idea on paper, it like felt like when I was looking at this tournament going in, I was thinking like, who's going to get hit the hardest by the Teo nerfs? And obviously you think one of the biggest is G2, but then you're also like, okay, Trent is one of the best like Fade Sova players in the world. Like he's all the way up there. That in a lot of these comps, you can kind of sub 1-for-1. I think the biggest issue is that I felt like in some ways they did not adapt some of their new ideas to how they wanted to play around Jaw on the Yoru. And I think he got left out to dry even more than he did in previous things. And I think in retrospect, the change to make would have been kind of maybe on some maps taking him off the Yoru, indexing more into like letting him be a little bit more of like a star again and give him some freedom, looking at more like what like a PaperX or Gen.G did with like Gen.G going into the Neon and stuff like that. I think that would have been really interesting to see. But yeah, I don't know. They played it safe. I don't think it was a bad idea going in. I think it made a lot of sense why they chose it, but they got punished for playing it.
Played it safe really defines it for me.
But they should have you gotta pick the maps that I think it's like it comes down to again that like Icebox Haven, they had new stuff. You got to pick that stuff like that. That's your like it's not too bad against PaperX because they had Icebox as like the third map. But again, I don't know. They probably got hurt the most by being first seed because I do think if they actually played the group games, they would have worked out that their stuff wasn't working because maybe Split was working in Prac and like officials are like the big teller of if comps are working. So I think with more reps. And they're probably the team again that got hurt the most with the first seed. But I don't know. They should have realized that their Split and the Lotus just wasn't good, and they should have had smarter comms that would work. In my opinion,
I was looking at the breach pick percentages because you guys brought it up earlier. All right, so the team that played the most breach, 75% pick rate was XLG. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Then at 50%, MIBR. I'll just rest in peace. Then also at 50%, Sentinels. So that's a bit unusual. I mean, they did all right actually at this tournament. They were kind of swapping it between John Cutie and Narrate, but yeah, they played 6 out of 12 maps. They had a breach pick, which
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why that feels like a fake stat, but I'll believe
I mean,
you.
listen, it might be a fake stat, but that's what Run It Back is telling me. So
No, I'll believe you. I'll trust you.
And then you have 33% Jonah P on G2. So still playing it a third of the time, which is more than the other teams that I haven't read out already.
Right.
But only Sentinels, I guess you could argue G2
I think
found a
it's,
bit of success
yeah,
with it.
it's because they were playing a lot of Sunset, and so they kept running Jean Breach.
Yeah, which
Right.
I'm not mad about the breach on Sunset. I just feel like it doesn't get the value on some of these other maps.
It
I
just
mean, even on
doesn't-
Sunset, though, that double smokes comp, I think is better that we saw them like Gen.G pull out right at the beginning.
But I just think that Flash initiators, and again, this is the best example, were like proven dead in the Teo meta. Like really, like you replace it with a Vice or a Yoru. Like that's what you do. And I don't know. I just think they misread. Dude, again, some of the stats that you were bringing up here. KO 11 times played, 30% win rate. Breach 16, 22% win rate.
That's crazy.
Criminal.
Like it's
Yeah.
proven. And then you had your
Criminal.
duelist had been playing Yoru for 2 months. Like,
Yeah.
But then we need better full process to set him up. I don't know.
I do think Wyatt is cooking with going like double duelist leaf on more maps, because the teams that just like dropped the second initiator, kept a Yoru in the comp and tried double duelist were all really successful. And like with other flash initiators getting nerfed, like the impact you can have with the Yoru and like how nice it is to have with your Macron defense, like I think there's some real cases to be made for more teams going that way.
I think the obvious question mark with that is then presumably you have Jonah playing Sentinel, and you would just say, but he never really played much Sentinel.
He's
in
played
the
some
past.
Vice.
He played, he played a bit
Played
of
Vice on Breach.
Yeah.
Antonio,
On Pearl, sorry.
a Vice Chamber suits this team so well, and then they can do double duelist as well. Like they just
Yeah.
need to lean heavy into Vice. Again,
Well,
Vice. Dude, oh man,
I
Vice
also just
Deadlock
wanna
was
see
so
them-
good for this event. Why are we not seeing much of it?
I just want to see them fight more as well. Like, I want to see them be disrespectful in the same way that, like, you know how PaperX are constantly like trying to re-challenge disrespect utility. I want to see them push the boundaries of what they think they can individually get away with before it's an error. You know, like taking some more risky plays in this time where you have the ability to experiment and push the boundaries a little bit to move yourself away from always having to play safe plus EV Valorant. So that if you need to, you can whip out some of the like more disrespectful style that you see from teams like PaperX. Moving on though, I'd like to shift us to the championship points discussion, because I think it flows quite nicely from G2. There are other teams, just as a quick check-in, there are other teams that have like a decent advantage, and the only one really is FNATIC. So G2 obviously are just like locked in, but they're the only team that's locked in for champs. FNATIC have got, I think, a 5-point advantage. They're at 14. Next highest is on 9. But I think that is pretty much safe to experiment as well, because as long as you don't lose every single game in stage 2, you're kind of chilling. But that team is already doing some experimentation, so I don't think they need to do anything.
I think it's
vastly different.
I think it's good for them though. Like I think a lot of the teams that are kind of locked in, still Sunset staying in the map pool, right? So they still kind of need to practice that. Both G2 and FNATIC. G2 ban it, FNATIC don't look great, and obviously there's a new map, so they can kind of spend a lot of time, like you're saying, experimenting for stuff that maybe will work on this and try to get you should just focus on trying to get a 7 map pool, should be like the main thing. And then you can maybe have like other comps that you can try, or like even just like a core of a comp, and then you switch out one agent that would just like win you 1 or 2 maps. So yeah, I think having this advantage is awesome. And yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think that these kind of teams, terms like G2, FNATIC, they can experiment a little bit.
China's very close, like super close, because EDG are at 10 points, Wolves at 9, Shilai at 9 as well, Billy at 8. There are 4 teams there, all in the running.
Yeah, but that's fine though, right? That's just the 4 teams for, like, I would say the China's the most ahead. Someone have to really mess up. Yeah, everyone's 3 points ahead. It's 4 that go through.
Yeah, I mean, you mean in terms of like it's difficult
Making
for one of
champs.
these other teams to make champs, but
Yeah.
all you need to do to make champs is make the grand finals of stage 2 as well. Which, like, could a Trace make a grand finals of stage 2?
How
Yeah, I
many
think
points teams are there?
possible.
Sorry, is it 2?
2, yeah,
Okay.
2
2
and 2,
and 2.
and the max you can make is 9 for like if you come third, that'll give you 4 points, and then you have 5 games before that, so you can make 9 points. Like if you come third.
So the two teams that make it to the grand finals are just through automatically.
Yeah.
So basically what champs points do is ensure that if you don't make the grand finals, you still have a good chance of being able to make it, because but if you miss out entirely on like third, fourth, then you could end up disappearing. I think Vitality are one of those teams in Europe that, god damn, I mean, we're going to be talking about a ton. We haven't really discussed any stage 2 news, but like once next week when we start talking about like roster shit and crazy stories from the off season that some of these teams have had, I mean, Vitality are one of them, so you got to be, they're in a mad situation. And then DRX and RRQ over in Pacific. DRX feel like it would be a tragedy if they didn't make it champs. It feels like they're always on the, like, just on the verge.
Yeah.
This year.
They can go for deep runs, though. They could be one of the teams that maybe gets a 1 or 2 as well. I don't know. This is close. Pacific's pretty close. Might be the most interesting as well. And I think that there's maybe a couple of underdogs that could maybe try have a strong run.
What about French teams in Paris?
Not
Show
looking
me
good.
the French team that's
It's
going to
not
make it
looking
to
good.
Paris.
I'm
Vitality
looking.
can.
Kurt, can you
Copio?
show the French team that's going to be in Paris, Kurt?
Yes.
I mean, Comic Corp are so far behind in terms of points with only 2. Gentlemate's even further at 1.
Don't worry, they
point.
just make the finals, Josh. It's fine.
But if K-Corp, K-Corp's a scary team, but they keep having pretty bad reads on the meta, and they're insanely harbor pilled. And it's like there's a reason that Riot's reworking the agent. It's
Yeah,
shit.
so the Comic Corp can make it to Paris. That's the reason they're reworking the agent.
It's literally
Riot's taking the
shit.
toys away to save their viewership. Like, no, Harbor, you guys gotta be here. You guys gotta be here.
I don't think having a French team in Paris would even do anything for viewership. I
Not
think it would just
viewership, but
make
like the crowd.
Crowd
would go
cooler.
crazy.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the sake of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Let's do our final segment though before we head to Wyatt's Weekly Award. A discussion that I think the whole community's been after as well. Can we finally say now the Pacific is the best region in the world? In 2025, they've won the last 2 events. They've also, I mean, it's a little bit of a cheat, to be honest, because I've seen people talk about, oh, they've won the last 4 Masters in a row. Yeah, there was a champs in the middle of that. And also people are like, oh, well, they won the last like 6 events in a row or something.
When
Yeah,
we do
again,
that,
China is not
I
Pacific.
hate when we do the like anything that refers to Masters being its own independent thing and not including champs. Those narratives
so
drive me insane. But anyway, go on.
Okay, but
Jesus.
So I had something I need to get out.
Good.
wait, she's gone. She's
What?
just died.
What is going on there? What is this bit?
She's just.
Oh.
Oh, boy.
Oh my god.
Oh boy.
You rang.
No, we didn't.
No
actually.
one did. No one rang. But now that you're here, speak your piece.
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
What?
honestly,
Yes,
it's-
we are. We, bro,
We.
thinks he's on the team. We.
We're talking about Pacific is the best region.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my fucking region. Yeah, we're the best region.
Oh, he's persuaded me. I'm on board.
There you
Strong
go.
words.
Thank you.
Strong
Now,
words.
I'm I'm gonna have to go ahead and say yeah.
Do you
My
know
man.
at champs?
I have to say it.
At champs, Pacific were the worst region.
Sure.
2024
Okay.
champs,
Great
best.
point.
Okay,
Great point.
but
Look
also
at the current
champs-
topic, Josh.
Yeah, you're living a
Cool.
year ago, mate.
Yeah.
It doesn't say, can we finally say Pacific is the best region so far in Champs 2024? That's not what the topic says. So
Yeah, that was champs last
What are we
year.
talking about?
And in current year, right now in this moment, you can go fuck yourself. So you know.
I think we're
Nice.
goalpost
Good
moving
point.
here. I don't think most people are talking about 2025. I think most people are talking about, are they the best region, like, just hands down.
So
the best-
this is this is if I may, this is why I
Explain the
actually wanted to jump in here because I just wanted to remind people of a dialogue that was going on. There was this whole thing that was happening when Valorant first started coming out, and everyone was talking about Asia generally, China included, because it's a TAC FPS. Asians don't play TAC FPS. Okay, you've got Tyloo in CS. They've never done anything. Blah, 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 blah. Koreans are only good at Overwatch. They never played CS. They're never going to get good at this game. EMEA and Americas will always reign supreme. All those people, I hope you can look back. If you were one of those people who are making those comments online, I hope you can look back, and I hope that you've grown. And I hope that you realize that you're very, very wrong. And if you haven't, fuck off. Because the great thing that I love about this game is that there is a ton of parity. Every region is playing each other so fucking close. Like PaperX, they could have lost that final. FNATIC, they hit a couple of other shots. They extend that into split. Honestly, I think they probably take it if it goes to map 5. But everything is so close, and I love that we have this pretty good balance between the 4 regions. So I just wanted to, mostly come in and say, anybody who had those thoughts previously, hope you've learned your lesson, because if there's a career in it, the Asians are going to get good at it. If there's money in it, the Asians are going to get good at it. We fucking surged to the top. I'm really happy. I think right now we are the best region, and that's about it. Mimi's coughing fit's probably done. I could probably scooch out of here.
and also, at the same time, the Mongols in the finals of the Austin Major.
Example.
So there you go. He's right. But also, I mean, in 2025, yes, Pacific is definitely the best region this year. They have the most depth at the top. 2 different teams have won Masters events that, neither of which were the winner of stage 1. That was RRQ, who did not have a great showing, but
neither of which was winner of kickoff.
Time,
that's what I mean.
good.
Yeah. Second seed won the first, and then third seed won the second.
Gen.G, they beat both fucking finalists at this tournament, but they're knocked out, which is crazy. But Gen.G certainly could win an international tournament. You're tripping if you think they're not. Texture is, I believe, the best player in the game at the moment. So, you can't count them out.
This is I've been logging the average placements of the regions recently, back from the beginning of the game, just to try to get some
fucking dork.
I know. Well then,
no, go on.
No, don't worry. Sorry, I'm just getting my head out of the fucking basin where you've given me a swirly. Let me just get out of the locker that Wyatt pushed me into. Since 2023 champs, so quite a way back, there has been no region that's been head and shoulders above the rest for 2 events in a row. It's always kind of gone back and forth, or at least it's been close between the regions. This is the furthest ahead that any region's been since then. And Pacific's never had a time on top until now. And now they're pretty significantly above the other regions when you look at averages, not just who wins, but all of the teams that they send and the average placement of them. The Pacific are way ahead right now for 2 events in a row.
I think they're one of the only regions I look at and I go, the 4 that are going to champs, they can all kind of win it. I find that hard to say about other regions. America's maybe, but
I think in our power rankings, weren't they the only region that were in, all of the teams were in the top 7? Because we said the top 7 could all win, and I think there's no way.
Pretty sure we had RRQ 6 or 7.
PaperX, the highest.
We definitely didn't have Liquid or MIBR in there, so I know it's
we had PRX 4, RRQ maybe
RRQ might have been 5th or 6th, and then Gen.G was 7th, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. It is kind of nuts.
But again, the beauty of it is that can just change quickly, and we could just see a rebound at any moment. It feels like from America's. Okay, so we had Sen at 6th, but we could just see a rebound. We could just see one of the other regions go on a run, and then kind of start to bring back that parity. And I really do love that it's one of these things that's constantly in flux, because
we had all 4 regions.
You look at League of Legends, Asia always dominates those games. And to kind of see this where it's fuck, Sentinels could go on a run. They could win a trophy. It could be FNATIC doing it. That's super sick.
Now that it's all said and done, could you pull those up again really quick, Kurt? Let's see how fucking
Bro.
stupid we are.
I mean, we are stupid.
I guess I might as well stay for this
Let's,
before we let Mimi back in.
Let's take a
'cause
look.
I
Yeah,
was
you were a part of this. You were a part of this.
Though I would have to go back and check some of the arguments because I think
Fanatic number 2.
I remember you
reasonable.
and I making a pact to try to argue Paper X up the chain. I was
Okay,
trying to say,
I'm not gonna lie. The top 4 is reasonable apart from Heretics.
Yep.
you know what I
Yeah.
did say on that episode was that Heretics, if you don't come first, you're last, and they have come so close to being first so many times that they should be ranked 12th. I said that on that episode, and they bowed out real fucking quick.
If we swapped Wolves and Heretics and RRQ and Gen.G and MIBR
Made this half
just
of the
got
thing.
pushed off the list,
5 different things.
then we're doing all right. Yeah.
So, some of them were okay. We were on the money with Sen. You know?
I mean,
not the
MIBR should have been
worst.
12th. Then it should have been Heretics at 11th.
Yeah, that's such a legendary MIBR crash out, though.
It was
There's
incredible.
just no reason to
Aspas
expect that.
continues to set records. It's
Just,
Yeah, but
all right,
I've also got to
insane.
like, dude, 2020. I can't remember what the tournament was. It might be Tokyo 2023 when Loud bombed out and Aspas had.
Copenhagen.
It might have been. I can't remember.
Yeah, it
there
was
was a tournament where Loud bombed out and
Sokyo as
Aspas
well.
only had 2 ops. This tournament, he
Oh,
had
that
no
was
ops.
Sokyo.
Oh, that one was
That
Tokyo.
was
it Tokyo?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
made me say
Why
it's
this guy an
Tokyo,
op?
yeah.
It's literally it's how you win games. Why are we
Yeah.
getting him 0 ops? That's mental.
We do have to wrap this episode up though, so
Yeah.
I think it's time for our.
Sorry, I've got something going on. Get me.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Are you okay, Mimi?
Yeah, feeling a little better.
What's this cough transition, man? How's this a thing?
It's pretty
Uh,
good.
it's
I'm not
time-
gonna lie.
It's time for our most important segment every week. Last week, it went to a fan who was all the way from Sydney who turned up in Toronto. This week, though, who's going to be the winner of Wyatt's weekly award?
Hold on. We're still... Wyatt's Weekly Award. This week, I'm going to be giving it to... I was going to say an unsung hero. I think he was relatively sung. There's just not, you know, not as sung, not as top 40 hit as someone like Forsaken or Jing, perhaps. But Patman deserves his flowers for this run for Paper X. He was not just there individually, not just there winning crucial clutches for the team, but he was the stabilizing factor. He was the factor that turned things around when the run began back in the regional play. This guy was phenomenal, transformed the team. They would have not won this tournament without him. He deserves a ton of credit, and I think he's getting... I do think he's getting it, to be honest. But still, you know, a little bit overshadowed by the guys that have been there forever, and got to make sure to point out how important that he's been for PRX.
Yeah, he's a beast, man. He's so good in clutches. That's the thing. He wins so many clutches, it's insane. And he fits great in this team. And again, I think he kind of holds a lot of people accountable for a lot of their discipline as well. So yeah, I think he's perfect, man. He's great. He's actually just a really good player.
Did you see the photo of Mind Freak giving him a hug as the rest are all celebrating? God, that's such an incredible photo. It's like all the rest of Paper X have their backs to the camera and they're all celebrating, confetti's coming down and stuff. And then Mind Freak is embracing Patman, like literally the guy that he replaced and has, you know, he's now in the coaching booth watching all of his teammates win. And Patman's in tears. Like it's such a good photo.
You can tell he's putting in like loads of work as well. Oh yeah, this is cool,
fucking
man.
crushed with this one.
And then even Alex, like,
Yeah,
Alex
like a
grabbed
photo
his
of me.
hand and put it on the trophy and stuff as well, right? It's cool that they're
Yeah.
just like you were a big part of this as well. Like, so I don't know, I loved it, and you could see like the emotion of it all as well. And again, dude, just by looking at how tired he was, I know he's put in work for assistant coaching stuff. So, yeah, great.
Yeah. Oh, Achilles is trying to.
Hey, Achilleos, I told you through text
Achille-
that we can't hear you on the show.
Okay, Achilleos is trying to pass on information.
Well, we can pass it on. He said which teams? Team Secret
Team
and
Secret passed on Patmen. And they also had Fade, the coach of Wolves, at one point. So he's just trying to get Team Secret and anti-Team Secret propaganda out there as his last hurrah before he leaves. It's just the guy's hatred for Team Secret knows no bounds. Like if Team Secret won an event, he'd be crashing out. He'd be crashing out.
Be like you at Paper X.
Exactly. Okay, I think that does it though for our episode 222. Thank you for coming along, Mimi, Sliggy, and Wyatt. And next week, just to preface things, we'll be digging more into kind of anticipating stage 2. There's tons of teams that we haven't discussed roster moves of. There's ridiculous, like, a ton of teams as they go forwards into stage 2 that we'll be talking about, etc., etc. So there's still shit tons of news that we just kind of ignored for the past month that we'll have to now dig back up and get to grips with. So if you're a fan of one of those teams, like Team Secret, for example, first of all, Achilleos hates you. Just want to make that clear. And also, we'll be talking about your squad. Hit the subscribe button and keep an eye out in case we do anything for champs. Not that we know anything about that yet. But for now, we'll see you in episode 223. Bye-bye.
Bye.